myself and Dustin Schutte, as always, joined by Rick Bozich, Hall of Famer. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. As you know, I did the drive to Albany and back last Wednesday morning. I was in the car and talked to you guys. And Monday, the game was Sunday night late. Monday morning, we made the drive back. Got home at about 9:45 and was able to watch the fourth quarter of the IU women's basketball game, and we can move on from there.
Yeah. How disappointing. You've been around the IU programs for a long, long time. I mean, that's as disappointing a basketball loss since someone pointed out maybe the 90s with the men, with those teams that probably should have won a national championship easily and didn't. But man, golly, that was just, I mean, Indiana, the men losing, they didn't give the effort. So it wasn't it sucked, but you didn't feel as bad. This, you were like, damn, it just wasn't working for some reason. It was weird.
Yeah. I've heard people compare it to 93 when they lost with Cheney, or 92 when they lost to Duke in the Final Four when Alan Anderson hurt that. I don't remember which year he was hurt, but one of those years he was hurt and whatever.
It was 94. 92 was when Ted Valentine fouled out most of the starting lineup.
I think it was 93 with Henderson, because Henderson was still there in 94, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, I compare it to the 75.
I was thinking that, but I didn't want to go there, man, because I wasn't around and I didn't want to do that. But God,
when I saw the emotion in the locker room, that's what I compared it to. I was there in 75 in Dayton, and I saw the emotion in the locker room, and that team had already beaten Kentucky by 16 or 24 points in the regular season, and was undefeated, #1 the whole year. And then Scott May broke his arm and came back and tried to play, and it was a colossal, letdown. And that's what this was. Although this team had lost a couple games late, they were playing at home in front of a packed Assembly Hall, and as you said, they were playing uphill the whole game and never could quite get over the hump. And it's tough, and it's what was tough. I have suggested, in terms of back-to-back days, it's the toughest back-to-back days in IU basketball history, because obviously the women's team has just become really nationally relevant in the last 4 or 5 years. But for the men and women both to lose to Miami when they were both higher seeds, and both programs having iconic players in Trayce Jackson-Davis and Grace Berger, where it was their final game, for the Indiana fan base, it's going to take a while to process that and get over it.
Yeah, they've never lost. The two programs have never lost two as high profiles at the same time ever.
Right.
Well, the women, because the women really don't have not had it. And Grace Berger is, as you put it, going to be on the Mount Rushmore. She is already on the Mount Rushmore of Indiana women's basketball, as she should be. And Trayce Jackson-Davis, I don't know about that, but he's going to be way up there. The Indiana women, they're set. I'm not going to say they're set for next year, but they're in great shape for next year. Again, of course, they lose a leader, a great player that they're going to have to replace, but they have great parts in place. The men's team, boy, that's a different discussion. We don't know what's going to be in place. I sent out a tweet yesterday. I put the over and under for new faces on the calendar at 5.5. I think it's going to be at least 6, depending now, and that does not include Xavier.
Okay.
But I think it's going to be 6 new faces. Personally, I'm taking the over at 5.5.
And that counts Cups and Newton as among the 5.5.
Yeah, coming in, yes.
So you're saying 4 guys either out of the portal or decommitments from somewhere else? Could be.
Well, they're losing 3 seniors,
right?
So,
the first thing I want to say is I want to give props to Trayce Jackson-Davis. I know people, hoped he would go out in a better way, but I think you have to step back and keep it in perspective of, he committed to Indiana at a time when a lot of kids in the state might not have. He could have easily gone to Michigan State, which was the safer path where he could be more assured of NCAA tournament success, and he didn't, and committed to Archie Miller, who afterwards a lot of guys weren't as interested in doing. And then when Archie left, he could have left and gone somewhere else possibly and had more success, or gone to the NBA, and he didn't. And then he came back for a fourth year. And I don't think in my lifetime, I know we're not going to ever see a guy with his ability stay around for 4 years. It's not going to happen. They're going to go pro or go in the NIL and transfer portal and get more money. And never embarrassed the program. In any media setting I ever saw him, incredibly well-spoken, thoughtful, polite, and he is a Hoosier. He was from Indianapolis, and he got the whole IU basketball experience, and he kind of sold it. And even you were there Sunday night, the way he kind of patted Mike Woodson on the back as he left the stage and said, the program's in good shape in the hands of this guy. So, for all the disappointment, I think it's important to give him credit for what he achieved, because he achieved a lot. As for next year, it's going to be fascinating, because there's a lot of decisions to make, or who you're going to get. The competition in the portal for the best guys is ferocious. I think it's even more ferocious than it is for high school recruits. High school guys, it's usually 5 or 6 schools. In these portal guys, I'm seeing they're listing 20 schools that are reaching out to them. And,
well, because with the portal guys, you already know what you're getting. With
correct.
The prospects, you think you know what you're getting. These guys are like, this guy's a shooter. It's like going, hey, I'm running down. Everybody's running down aisle 14 at Kmart and trying to get to the top of the shelf there.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah. I mean, so it's a tough thing, and Woodson's going to have to make a decision on how is he going to play moving forward. Let's be honest. Indiana roster construction was not optimal this year. Trayce and Race are both post players. That was a great philosophy maybe in the 60s or 70s, maybe even to the 80s, but that's not the way college basketball is played anymore. And as you saw against Miami, the better team is the team that has 3 or 4 guys who can really drive the ball, shoot the ball. They really are triple threat type players. And Indiana doesn't have enough of them, and they need to get them. And, I'm going to be interested to see who they get to fill the spots and what kind of players they are. And they need to – there needs to be some tweaks made to the way they play offense, because pick and roll and mid-range jumpers by the point guard and getting the ball inside, dumping the ball inside all the time isn't going to work on a consistent basis.
I think there's some truth to this. Woodson made the most of what he had to work with. This is not how Woodson wants to play from Jared. He a lot of these guys are leftovers from Archie Miller, who we talked about earlier on the show. Things are not going well for Lil Rhodey. He's having a mass exodus of players after his 9-22 season up there. But who all leaves is going to be interesting to me. I don't think Logan Duncombe returns. I don't think that Tamar Bates returns. And
you don't? Why do you think that?
I was in the locker room afterwards, it was very, very, very emotional for those guys. Not as emotional for the women. He was showing no emotion. He was the only one, not even close to crying. Which I'm not saying you have to cry, and people handle things differently. I'm not saying you have to cry, and that doesn't. But it stood out to me that he was the only one that was. What's weird is and I can't compare him to me, but he just had a baby, and the reason I point that out is I remember after having my daughter, it was a hard delivery, and I was very, very calm during the delivery until it was actually cleared. Her heart wasn't started, and they got her heart started and all this stuff. And then once everything was good, I just burst out into this unbelievable. I bawled like a baby. But ever since then, I think I've become more emotional. And so I'm like thinking, he just had a baby too. So, but there was just no emotion there. And it was just weird to me. It just how it appeared. Jalen Ojafino, he disappeared into the bathroom and was never to be seen again. But everyone else, had tears. Even the managers were crying.
Yeah, it was fascinating when I walked out after all the locker room stuff. Was that Dalton Godby and I were out on the court, and I saw one of the staff assistants and stuff. I mean, they were sitting out on the bench, very emotional. I mean, I don't know why, but it seemed like more emotional than normal. So yeah, there was a lot of guys that showed a lot of emotion. I mean, Bates could leave. That's understandable. I mean, not to be critical of the kid, but he got plenty of opportunities and didn't come through. I mean, he was 0 for 13 in Albany. He got 13 shots.
IU's bench did not. There was no. IU did not have a bench, and the big talk about them being so deep, and they got zip from their bench in Albany.
Yeah. I mean, didn't he have the third or fourth most field attempts in that game? And
he put him up, man.
He went scoreless in 6 of the last 11 games he played in. So it wasn't just a 1 or 2 game thing. It was a consistent problem. So he needs to change and improve his game. He's a guy who's so dependent on just shooting jump shots. There's more to the game, man. You got to set your it's with passes. His defense did get better. You got to be able to pass the ball. You got to be able to attack the lane and score inside. Get to the line if your shot's not going in. I would say the only guys I'm totally sure will be back would be Galloway. I would think Renew would be back. I would think Banks would be back. I would think Gunn would be back. Leal probably. But after that, everybody else, I don't know. So with only 2 signees, I mean they are going to need to get 4 or 5 guys out of the portal, and that's hard.
But they need that. They need that. They need that to change. They need that to upgrade this offense because they need to get athletic. The Miami game exposed them. I don't know if it exposed complete athleticism because some of it's heart. Effort is part of that, but. Having Race and Trayce out there, an athletic team is just going to kick your behind every time. You can't keep up with them. And Norchad Omer, my God, it's like they couldn't even find him, much less block him out. I mean, he was just. I don't understand how one guy can do that to a team, but he just destroyed Indiana on the boards. He's like 6'7".
Well, he had 17. He had 17 boards, I think. I mean, Miami had 19 offensive rebounds, and Indiana had 20 defensive rebounds. That's a bad ratio. And what was very apparent was that, they were quicker leapers and they were quicker second leapers. And there was a lot of times, I mean, let's be honest, Kopp and Race Thompson just aren't super athletic guys, and they don't have a tremendous amount of bounce, and they couldn't handle those dudes. I mean, they really couldn't. And they were getting all the long rebounds too. I was sitting next to Dane O'Neill there, and I know it's 13-3 early, but even before then, I said these guys, this is going to be a tough game for Indiana to win because they're not going to be able to guard these guys. They spread the floor, and how many times did Miami wait to the last? They look for a really good shot. They wait to the last 6 or 7 seconds in the shot clock, and then they got the ball to Wong or somebody else and just said, beat your guy off the dribble and score. And they did, and they scored in the last second of the shot clock. It happened at least 2 and maybe 3 times. And Miller, I think that was his name, number 11, he abused Indiana in the second half, attacking the rim. I mean, they had better players.
Isaiah Wong just destroyed Indiana from the outside. And then, of course, I mentioned Norchad Omer just destroying him with rebounding. I mean, they just had 2 guys basically that killed Indiana. But John Ruiz certainly put a hurting on Indiana this weekend. That's for certain.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
I mean, he single-handedly beat Indiana's men's and women's programs this weekend.
Yeah, you're talking about his NIL recruitment of Nigel Pack and the Cavender twins. I mean, that's the way the game is right now. So, you can complain about it or you can respond to it and do something about it. And I think point B is probably the way you need to go because there are going to be more John Ruiz's going forward because other schools are going to say, hey, we can be Florida Atlantic. we can be, Princeton's not going to do it, but San Diego State, we can be Creighton, we can be whoever else is out there. There's a few other ones I'm not thinking of right now, but Kansas State or whatever, that can be done.
Yeah, Indiana finished that game against Miami 0 for their last 9.
Did they? Yeah, the last 5 minutes was just a blur, and Miami seemed to take special joy in it all because even after Jackson-Davis went out of the game, they were throwing the run-out long passes and dunking the ball. So they never really called off. I mean, they didn't they? They didn't call off the dogs at all.
No, not only that, it's kind of reminiscent of last night at the women's game. The coach apologized a little bit for them being a little exuberant as well. I think they went to the center of the IU court and was jumping on the logo, the women. But Miami is a different culture.
Yes, it is.
So
the thing that I don't understand is the economics of it all. I mean, Nigel Pack is a fine player. He's maybe their third or fourth leading scorer this year. I'm not sure what the NIL people, how they're getting $400,000 worth of value from what Nigel Pack does for Miami.
I want to know is what's Norchad Omier and Isaiah Wong getting is what I want to know.